Okay, I'm just going to go through the topics for the exam mobile operating systems. Okay, I'm just going to go through the topics on the mobile operating system exam. Just at this point, though, I would pay attention in the exam to the language used on the question. They will put words in bold. They will put words in speech marks. They'll put words in italics. Generally, that word is key to how the answer is going to be presented. So you could potentially have 4 right answers to choose from. However, it will be a case of selecting the best answer out of the 4. Okay, so don't get caught out. Make sure you read the question thoroughly. Make sure you're understanding what the question's asking you. Okay, so if we look at topics 1.1 about devices, very straightforward. You just need to provide an overview of the following: server, desktop, mobile device, and virtualization, and you will be presented with scenarios that they're used in. So look at keywords like, for a server, that server's role within a network is to allocate resources. So if it's a file server, it's allocating files, distributing files to the rest of the network. A desktop device generally is going to have a wired connection. It's going to be fixed in place, and it's not going to be mobile. Okay, so you might be presented with a situation where a desktop, can't be moved between remote workers, for example. So you might have to select the best device possible for a sales representative, for example, which is obviously not going to be a desktop because they're not going to be putting it in the car as they move around the country. Okay, mobile devices such as laptops, mobiles, and tablets. So don't just think of it as a mobile phone. You've got basically anything that's got a wireless connection is a mobile device. And then virtualization. So in terms of the context of this course, virtualization is an abstraction of resources. So that's quite a broad definition. So dual booting a laptop, for example, is an example of virtualization because it's separating the storage on that laptop into 2 operating systems. So it's an abstraction of resources. Okay, so then topic 1.2, hardware versus software. So again, we're staying very sort of basic level. You will have to describe the basic elements of computing devices and health and safety considerations for working with these devices. So you may be presented with numerous components and what they're doing in that scenario. So, for example, if we look at an SSD versus a hard drive, which one is more suited to a certain scenario? So is it based on speed or cost, etc.? Okay, understand what hardware is. So the hardware performs the work for that device. Firmware. So firmware is hard-coded into computer hardware to give instructions to devices to communicate. It's stored in non-volatile RAM. So a computer BIOS, for example, is a prime example of firmware. Software is a collection of data that tells the computer how to work. Don't get operating systems and applications mixed up, because applications sit on top of operating systems. Operating systems are installed on different devices. So, for example, a Mac uses Mac OS, a Google Chrome netbook will use Android, and an operating system simply translates the language of hardware into the language of software. You've got 32-bit versus 64. So if it's a 32-bit operating system, it can only utilize up to 4 gigabytes of RAM. And then look at the health and safety considerations, such as power surges, the weight of the devices. So we talked before about moving PCs around, you lifting them correctly, or using specific devices to move them around. Could be discussed in the context of a question. Are anti-static bands being used, and it has fire or flooding around these electronic devices been taken into account. So these are all going to be sort of scenario-based questions that you're going to have to select the best outcome from each.